What's up, Kryptonians? So I was actually supposed to review this movie last week, but I went out of town for the Super Bowl. Didn't have a chance to do anything video related until I got back like a day or two ago. Today I'm gonna be reviewing Hard Eyes. I'm also gonna be reviewing the new Captain America movie really soon, so stay tuned for that. But for this video, we're talking about Hard Eyes. Hard Eyes is a new horror movie slash romantic comedy that came out last weekend. This movie is directed by Josh Rubin, and it stars Olivia Hoyt. It also stars Mason Gooding, and it stars Jordana Brewster. The story here is a pretty simple setup. Olivia Hoyt plays this girl who works at this advertising company. Mason Gooding plays this guy who also happens to work at this advertising company or just got hired by them, and they bump into each other in a coffee shop. Valentine's Day, and there's a lot of nerves and tension in the city because for the last couple of years prior to this movie, there's been a serial killer going around killing couples on Valentine's Day. This killer is known as the Hard Eyes Killer, and so when these two kind of get mixed up for a couple, it leads to a long night of the Hard Eyes Killer chasing after them, trying to kill them. Thus, we have a horror movie and a slasher movie, and also a high-level romance, as it turns out. I will say, based on how the trailer played out, I'm actually a little bit pleasantly surprised that the execution for this concept was so good. This movie has three overall pockets that it needs to hit. Obviously, it's a slasher movie, so you want to see some good kills, you want to see some good gore. It's a movie that's supposed to be a romantic comedy, so you want some good romance, you want some parts of the movie to feel funny. Even if shit in the movie doesn't always make sense, you want to be entertained. If a slasher movie like this can't entertain you, they have lost the plot. But yeah, one of the things that actually surprised me about this movie is how much of a romance it actually is. Shout out to the performances by the two leads. Olivia Hoyt, I'm not allowed to technically say anything about her since it's still Black History Month. I'm not allowed to step outside my lane, so to speak. Just speaking about her as a performer, she's really, really good in this movie. She has a good character. You understand why her character feels the way she feels, but also Mason Gooding as the other lead in the movie is really, really absurdly good. He's so good that it made me take a step back and be like, hey man, were they wasting your talent in those recent Scream movies? They have really good chemistry too, and it's not like one of those forced things where you can tell the movie needs them to be a couple. It's one of those things where their characters actually kind of push and pull against each other. There's like a magnetic thing. Every time they try to separate or like divide from each other, they end up getting pulled back together, and I like relationships like that. I like relationships where they kind of butt heads a little bit and then kind of slowly realize they're meant for each other over the course of a runtime. I think that shit is really hot. But I also want to praise this script. The script is really funny. It has a lot of really funny moments. Similar to Companion, which came out a few weeks ago at the end of January, it's a movie that doesn't try to take itself too seriously. There are definitely some elements of this movie that I'll talk about later where it kind of feels like a clash of tones. But when the movie is funny, it's funny. When it hits, it really hits. I found myself chuckling a lot throughout this movie. It's definitely very chuckle-worthy. And of course, if you're a slasher fan, you're gonna want to see some gruesome deaths and some blood and a lot of really gory stuff happen. Granted, you have seen gorier slasher movies than this one, but that doesn't mean they don't get creative with some of the kills in here. And I also like the fact that they differentiate the Hard Eyes Killer. They make the Hard Eyes Killer one of those serial killers that utilizes different weapons to kill people. I found that pretty interesting. You have a script that is simultaneously self-referential and self-aware, but also just funny when it needs to be. I feel like you could squeeze a lot of entertainment out of that entertainment titty. Just because the movie has some funny moments doesn't mean that there isn't a clash of tones occasionally in this movie. Sometimes this movie isn't completely sure of what it wants to be. Sometimes you're watching this really intense slasher movie where there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of intensity in scenes where the killer is chasing these people and trying to kill them. Then there are other times where the movie feels kind of exaggerated and over the top, where it sometimes feels like a parody of itself, and that didn't always mix well. Sometimes it did feel a little bit like oil and water. There are just some awkward moments where I was just kind of like, it feels like you were pausing to let the audience laugh there, and I, as an audience member, I wasn't a huge fan of that, I'm not gonna lie. This movie is paying homage to a lot of the other slasher flicks that have come before it, namely Scream. And while there's nothing wrong with honoring Scream, there's nothing wrong with showing it respect and maybe like being inspired by some of its elements, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes this movie crosses over from homage to straight up copying. Like they're showing reference, and then there's just like certain moments that feel like you're watching a Scream movie, except it's not a Scream movie, and it's hard to get over that level of contrivance in a movie like this. I'll also say that there is a very transparent twist that they set up in this movie, being that it is Scream light, so to speak. There's a twist, there's a reveal. Obviously, you're gonna find out who the killer is, and the way they set it up in this movie feels very transparent. Feels like you're gonna know immediately, like almost immediately, who it is. Having said that, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I thought it was enjoyable. I thought it was well made. I thought it was well acted. I like the romance in the movie. There's a lot of options, a lot of movies that you could choose to watch for Valentine's Day weekend. I feel like this is a perfect Valentine's Day movie. I feel like most people on either side of the aisle, no matter what you're looking for, are gonna get something out of it. Hard Eyes was a really fun, really entertaining slasher movie, I'm gonna leave this one in the Silver Age for Man of Steel. Those are my thoughts on Hard Eyes. Tell me, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Tell me what you thought of the movie in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.